This page and related pages summarize rule changes from the implementation of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rules to the Baldur's Gate 3 rules. The rule changes described in this page and related pages are written with the assumption the reader understands the relevant D&D 5e rule. These pages will not explain what the D&D 5e rule is, only what the changed or altered BG3 rule is. These pages also include many BG3 features and abilities that are unchanged from D&D 5e to help a D&D 5e player quickly see what options have changed and which have not, and make decisions without having to do additional research. If the BG3 rule aligns with the one D&D rule or other playtest material from D&D 5e, that's considered a rule change from D&D 5e. There will be a rapid changes to these pages at BG3 launch, so leaving relevant comments with any edits are strongly encouraged. So where are we? Fundamental changes. Level cap is 12. This is a weighted dice setting in the game called Karmic Dice, which as of Early Access Patch 9 is enabled by default. We will be disabling Karmic Dice. It doesn't seem like a fun feature at all. Check your game settings to disable this option if desired. Characters must use a 27 point buy. Fantastic. That is the standard way I build all of my characters. All races have a +2/+1 flexible ability score. That's really nice. That means you can get cool race features without having to pick your race based on the class you want to be. For example, Rogue needs Dex. If you have a race that has +2 int, +1 strength, that race really can't play a Rogue because you can't get your max ability scores soon enough. So all races having flexible ability scores, so it could be int or dex or strength or whatever you want, is really, 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 really nice. Similar to Tasha's alternate rules, so the standard 5e ratio ability score, though the standard 5e ratio ability score bonus and the +1/+1/+1 option do not exist. Half-elves and humans have been granted additional features to make up for this change. Good, half-elves were super overpowered with that change, and humans have been overpowered forever. There's no word yet on whether mountain dwarves have been similarly compensated. The details of this change are discussed in the D&D 5e races change. I don't think that's actually that deep of a thing that we need to dig into. I mean, that's just good for character building. Multi-classing ignores ability score requirements. That's huge. I've never been totally sure how I felt about multi-classing ability score requirements. It is restrictive, but I'm not sure if it was bad restrictive or good restrictive. So seeing that just thrown out entirely is fairly interesting. We'll have to see what that does for us. You're able to respec your characters when you meet an NPC made available early in Act 1 of the game. At a minimum, you can respec your starting class, subclass when applicable, ability scores, spells when applicable, and skill proficiencies. It's not possible to change a character's race. It's interesting. I think being able to respec is going to be great for the game. Especially, I really like their description of this. This was essentially get to be able to respec so that you don't have to restart the game just because you've made some character building decisions that you don't want to keep. I think that's great because one of my problems with Divinity Original Sin 2 was I burnt out on that game before I really started the game, in part because I played the beginning so much. If you change an origin character or traditional companion starting class or subclass, the world will still react to them as though they were the original class. So be it. There is a lot of story in this game, so I think that makes a lot of sense, is to protect their storyline development. Hit points gained on level use the average, not the roll of the hit die. This is how I've always played in pen and paper as well. I don't like variants like this. It's really shitty when you're the tank and you roll all ones on your HP progression dice, and then suddenly you're not the tank anymore because you're just screwed if anyone hits you. So I think average progression is a really nice thing. Anyways, these are mostly changes I agree with so far. The party is limited to 2 short rests per long rest. Short rests restore each ally's hit points by an amount equal to half their hit. This is new. So this is we get a sense of the pacing. That's pretty cool. 2 short rests per long rest. No information yet that I'm aware of anything about long resting. Like, can I? Well, I'll touch on that in a minute. This is kind of standard D&D, how it's supposed to be in the manual of how to play, right? Roughly 2 short rests per long rest. And short rests restore each ally's hit points by an amount equal to half their maximum HP rounded down. That's a slight debuff for the player, right? Lots of character classes don't take damage every fight. Mostly your casters and backline classes. So the fact that they won't have hit point dice to restore large amounts of hit points to full basically when they need it is kind of annoying. But this is probably actually an increase in quality of life for all your tanking and frontline characters, right? Which is each short rest gives you a chunk of HP back, so you're not screwed by the dice recovery rule. That is, it's kind of slow to get HP dice back, especially if you're using them a lot. So that's kind of cool. Long rests require camp supplies, which are food items that can be looted or purchased, and towns you'll be able to rest at an inn. I hope they're expensive. I'm looking forward to seeing a well-paced short and long rest game. I mean, we're just playing Celesta right now, right? And this is one of the repeated problems I have with the PC ports of the D&D system, which is everything is great when you are taking roughly the number of rests the DM wants you and built the campaign to be for. When you have too many rests, the game is too easy, and certain long rest abilities in particular are too powerful. When you have too few, you don't really have the abilities to progress in the campaign. But it's really difficult to get the sense of what that is when you're playing on a computer game as opposed to with a real life DM. So camp supplies limiting that. Hopefully they're expensive. Hopefully they give them out at kind of a slow pace so that you're incentivized to actually use your resources in a fun way. Whether or not that's true, we'll have to see. I'm getting chat telling me in early access camp supplies are readily available. Well, I'm not so sure why. I'm not sure why these two things don't make a lot of sense if you can just long rest whenever you want, right? If camp supplies are readily available or cheap, then what's the point of limiting a long rest, a too short rest to a long rest? Are there other things that are going to happen? Are there random encounters that regularly happen? Is there time progression in the game that pushes you this way? Is there going to be other stuff that makes the flow of the game continue to progress, or are you just going to be able to spam rest? I hope it's not just spamming rest. All right. Rolling a natural 1 on a skill check always results in a failure, even if modifiers will put you over the DC. Rolling a natural, you almost always fail on 1s anyways, unless it's really easy stuff. And really, the DC of the roll is something the DM sets. So if the DM wants you to get information, they just set the DC low. It's kind of weird to always fail. I guess it's kind of fun for the player to have a fail criteria, but I'm not sure that's always a good rule. Rolling a natural 20 on a skill check always results in a success, even if modifiers do not put you over the DC. That's standard as well. There are no additional fumble or critical chances besides an automatic failure or pass of the check. This does say check only too. It doesn't say, it says skill check. I think weapon attacks are, I don't know if they count as skill checks. I think they don't. So it's interesting, I suppose. All right. Combat areas tend to have a large amount of verticality, but are rather small in horizontal size. This has led to the following mechanical changes. The ranges of spells are reduced as described on the spell page, often to 60 foot. I need to go look at that spells page after. We'll come back to that to figure out which ones. Because if it's just capping the range at 60, so be it. If it's reducing some of the core spells down, then I want to see that. The normal ranges of weapons are reduced to 60, except hand crossbows, which have a range of 50. And dark vision is reduced to 40 and superior dark vision to 80. What was dark vision before? 60? 50? Okay. So small reductions and stuff, but the map sizes are such that that's not supposed to be a big deal. It's supposed to be just adjusting for the terrain you're going to be doing it. Okay. Was 60? Okay. When a creature is at least 10 feet above their target and makes a ranged attack, they receive a +2 bonus on the attack roll due to high ground. Well, there's some interesting things right off the bat about that, right? A +2 bonus stacks with advantage. It doesn't and advantage normally is a multiple sources of advantage only count as one advantage kind of deal. So in other words, if you have a flying archer, you might be able to get both advantage and a bonus, which is very, very powerful. When a creature is at least 10 feet below their target and makes a ranged attack, they receive a -2. Cool. High ground and low ground are going to be relevant for ranged attackers. It's probably going to fuck the player quite a lot if I had to guess. I bet you walk into a lot of terrain where the enemy is set up already with archers on high ground. But it is an interesting thing to play with. We'll have to see. All right. If 2 player control characters are next to each other in the initiative order, then their initiative is shared. Both characters can act at the same time. That's cool. I wonder what act at the same time means. I can stagger their turn. Can I move with one, then attack with the other, then move with the other, then move, and then attack with the first one again? It's kind of an interesting feature if that's the case. I don't know what that's going to do for me necessarily, but allows some initiatives kind of clunky in D&D sometimes. Like when we play, for example, if we have one teammate who's able to push an enemy to the ground and another teammate who might take advantage of that, sometimes the turn order is such that you just never get any value out of that. So that can be fun. But if it still has to be immediately adjacent in initiative order, and there's still a lot of initiative spread, like it's not in if it currently uses the standard D&D initiative system, it's a D20 plus a modifier, which means you have a lot of places you can be placed on it. So the odds that your guys are going to be super close in initiative isn't very high. So this may not be that impactful most of the time, but it's a cool little thing that might happen if your characters roll basically identical initiative. Tool and language proficiencies are not used. This includes thieves' tools. Skill checks to pick or lock or disarm a trap use the character's sleight of hand modifier and require a set of thieves' tools or a trap disarm toolkit, respectively, which are consumed on a failure. Okay, so lockpicking is sleight of hand, which is a dex skill. I'm expecting sleight of hand to be more interesting in a very heavily story-driven game too, so that's kind of cool. Interesting about language proficiencies, and I wonder about some of the other toolkits that you sometimes use, like a disguise kit or something. Okay, I think that simplification is probably okay. I mean, basically for tools, you pretty much ignore them except for lockpicking, which you always have to have somebody with. As of early access patch 9, creatures don't have a sense of hearing and instead can only detect what they see. Interesting. I wonder if that will change. So the sight-based detection. If you hide while not in a creature's sight cone, you automatically succeed. If you try to hide while in a creature's sight cone, you automatically fail. If you're hidden and enter a creature's sight cone, you must roll stealth against the creature's passive perception. That's different than a lot of the systems that I've played in, most recently Celasta. The hide when you're out of a sight cone seems fine, and not being able to hide while in a sight cone seems fine. What I'm worried about is the passive perception check of multiple enemies and how sight is calculated. So does this mean that you're really not going to be able to hide in combat? Because the second you step into line of sight to attack, not only are you're going to get like 6 people rolling perception and any one of them pops you out. It seems interesting. This may be a straight roll advantage or disadvantage based on the creature's senses and the level of lighting. Some creatures with their different senses, such as blind sight, may follow different rules. I mean, in general, I like that the description of that system. Whether or not all of it works is TBD, I guess. A number of changes to hiding and stealth have made it into the full release, but exact details have yet to be verified. Bummer. I'd love to know the exact details of that. There's an inspiration system. Oh, cool. As a party, you can have up to 4 inspiration dice, which may be applied to a failed skill check. The way you gain dice is based on the background of you and your companions. If, for example, you or one of your companions has a charlatan background, you may gain an inspiration die for your party if they deceive their way into a fortified enemy position. Wow, that's so cool to see this implemented in the PC version. So in general, inspiration is like you did something the DM thought was really cool RP-wise, so they'll give you an inspiration die. Here it looks like we're going to have mechanics for gaining inspiration die, and your party could be themed for that. That's super cool. I hope that is well broadcast, the types of things you could do so you can really play into that. That's nice. Characters can carry 10 pounds of weight per point of strength. If a character is carrying an amount of weight equal to 7 pounds times strength, they're encumbered. And they become heavy encumbered at 9 pounds per strength. So if we dump strength to 8, wow, that seems really low. A low strength character can only carry 56 pounds. Huh. I wonder what armor weighs. I don't have any sense of what the weight of armors and weapons are. Either this means nothing, it just is some variation of, you're limited in strength, your party can't carry a ton. Or this means you're going to have to put some points in strength because all the things you might want to do, you can't carry. So we're going to have to play around with that and see what it's actually like. You can always send your stuff to camp, but I mean, it depends. Does this include, as chat just pointed out, this may or may not include equipped items, right? So is this additional in my backpack? What if my bow weighs 40 pounds? It seems like strength is, and the reason why I point this out is strength is generally a dump stat, right? Most characters are not putting points in strength because it isn't valuable for most characters, and there's much more valuable attributes to be picking from. But if you get to a point where you can't carry your armor, it matters. I don't know if gold has weight in Baldur's Gate 3. That's a really good question too, because Baldur's Gate 3 might require you carry the gold you loot. So, all right. Spellcasting. Details on individual spell changes can be found on the D&D 5e spell changes page. We'll look at that in a minute. Prepared spellcasters can change their prepared spells at any time out of combat. It's a nice feature. Used to have to, I think this is normally is on long rest, but it is a buff to the prepared spellcaster classes, which are what? Druid, Wizard. It's just Druid and Wizard, this prepared spellcasters. I'm blanking if there might be, Cleric, Paladin, right? Druid, Wizard, Cleric, Paladin. So 4 classes. That's going to make prepared spell lists kind of nice. It lets you get a lot of utility out of having those in a way that you might not be able to otherwise. And this means you can, if you fail an encounter, you can very easily just swap them over. That's kind of cool. I like that. I think it's a good change. Verbal, somatic, and material components are ignored. Being silenced prevents all spellcasting regardless of what companions would do in D&D 5e. That's huge. This means your melee caster classes, all your Gish characters that want to be using shield or casting some sort of buff or something, can do that while having their equipment on, which is often not possible until you get something like a specific feat that enables that. So it's pretty nice. Pretty nice. That's a great feature. I think the idea of certain spells requiring certain gestures and certain words is a kind of nice lore feature and maybe is fun in some situations, but a lot of times it just makes it really clunky, so it's nice to see that change. The game does not stop a character from casting a leveled spell with both an action and a bonus action. Okay, so in normal D&D 5e rules, you're allowed one non-cantrip spell per round, basically. Not per round, per turn. So a character, even with like an additional way to do it, you couldn't cast 2 full spells. So if I had like a quickened action cast as a sorcerer, I couldn't cast Fireball twice. It'd have to be Fireball once and a cantrip once. So that's fairly interesting. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to do necessarily. It probably doesn't come into play all the time, but it will come into play occasionally, and it's nice. And I like the theme of the simplifications we're seeing in the 5e rules right now. That is, they're taking these kind of weird interactions and not edge cases, but like lower use cases and simplifying these to make this less unpredictable for players who are not familiar with the system, which I think is pretty cool. Ritual casting is not in early access, but the ritual caster feat will be added at launch. So it's possible the ritual casting is added at launch. I'm not so interested in ritual casting as a feat. It's a nice aspect of the classes that get it. I'm thinking right now particularly of Wizard. Wizard without ritual casting would be really weird. It would be a really big nerf to the class. So that seems like this would be a pretty cool thing to see in the game. So I hope it does make it in. All right. Anyone can cast any spell scroll from any class list. I always play with this homebrew rule in Celesta. I think scrolls should be such that it feels super shitty to loot spell scrolls that don't do anything for your team. And spell scrolls as a consumable resource is fun. Even if it's not on their own and they do not have the spellcasting feature. That's pretty cool. So your fighter may be able to use scrolls. And there is no Arcana check for casting higher level spells than a character has spells known. Well, I mean, this is going to be a pretty well-paced game, right? Or pretty deliberately paced game. So I'm not too worried about like stumbling across scrolls that are too powerful for my level. It is interesting that your non-caster classes are going to be able to cast that. I wonder what they're going to do for like spell DC. Like, what if these are offensive spells? Like, what are we checking against? If I cast a spell with my barbarian, is it going to be rolling against my intellect modifier for DC? It's kind of cool. Spell scrolls do not have a fixed it says next line, let's find out. Spell scrolls do not have a fixed DC or attack roll bonus. They use the caster's relevant castings modifier, verification required at launch when multi-classing implemented. All right, so your barbarian may be able to cast haste and maintain haste, presumably not while raging, but the barbarian is not going to be able to cast hold person. Got it. All right, cool. All right, action economy. A character can have one ranged weapon set equipped and one melee weapon set equipped, and they are able to freely switch between them as a free action an unlimited number of times per turn. This includes starting their turn with a melee weapon equipped, switching to a crossbow for free, shooting at targets, and switching back to a melee set to allow them to make opportunity attacks. Equipping a weapon from the inventory costs an action. That's a simplification again. It's very powerful with the shield. Am I going to be having one set where I have a shield and one set where I have a two-handed weapon, and I start the turn with my shield out, and then I swap to my two-handed weapon, make an attack, and then pop my shield out again? That's a powerful improvement to my armor class if that is the case. Now, interestingly, it doesn't say in this line, and this line is a wiki, it's not an official release of any sort, but it doesn't say I can have one melee and shield equipped. It says I can have one ranged weapon set and one melee weapon set. So, I don't know. Chat points out it doesn't say you can swap melee to melee. I read this as you can swap between two weapon sets, but you're right. Maybe you can only swap range to melee. But even then, can I pull out a bow, shoot someone with my bow as my archer, whatever my archer may be, and however my archer has access to a shield? Maybe I'm a ranger. Maybe I'm a ranged ranger. And then after I've shot someone with my bow, pull out my shield? It's kind of interesting. Chat says I can only swap range to melee. Well, what stops me from doing exactly what I said, but having like a thrown weapon in my hand? So does a thrown weapon count as a ranged or melee weapon? So can I have javelin and spear or javelin and shield in hand and then swap to two-handed weapon and swap back to javelin and shield? It's another barb buff if I can. All right. Shove is not part of the attack action. It is a bonus action available to all characters. Excuse me, what? Oh, shove only pushes the target back an amount that depends on the shover's strength and target's weight. It normally does not knock them prone unless they're shoved off a high ledge. Oh, that's okay. I don't think I mind that. It's kind of weird as a bonus action. It means you're basically always going to have a dice roll to potentially break out of their zone of control, which is fine. You also get AC from shield even if you don't swap to melee weapon set? Really? Oh my god, okay. Well, shields are going to be strong then. If I don't even have to have the shield out to get the bonus from it, that's decent. So we're going to want shields on everyone. All right. Falling damage only sometimes causes a creature to go prone. Okay. Using the help action on a downed ally brings them back to 1 hit point and leaves them prone. Why 1? 1 is back in the fight. It's not even a stabilize, so everyone just gets basically a free potion anytime they want with help action. Wow. Jumping is a bonus action which consumes 10 feet of movement speed. With a strength score of 10 or below, a creature can jump 15 feet, and this increases by 5 feet for every 2 points in strength above 10. At 20 strength, the creature may spend 10 feet of movement and a bonus action to jump and can travel 35 foot, effectively increasing that creature's movement speed by up to 25 foot. Can you jump, chat, in a flat line when there's no reason to jump? Like if I'm just covering normal ground, can I leap? It's pretty wild if I can. Well, maybe we'll see jumping occasionally occur. At the moment, the only time I ever jump is between like ledges or something. Yeah. It's free speed for strength. Yeah, that's pretty cool. There's a lot of strength class improvements right now. The dodge action is not present in the early access or launch with the exception of the monk's patient defense ability. Or at launch. So dodge is just out. I was talking about this earlier on stream today, but I think for the purposes of this video and this review here, it's worth mentioning again. Dodge is fucking insanely powerful in this game, in D&D 5e rules. As in, it's often the best action for your frontliners to take regularly, right? And features that give you free dodges are very powerful features. So and dodge previously is, or in the system is disadvantaged for attacks targeting you. That's to have this just entirely gone is really interesting mechanically. It will make the classes that were doing a lot of dodging much more fun to play because it really sucked to take your primary action, the primary thing you're doing in your turn, and to just say, I dodge and do nothing. It's not nothing. It's a huge damage avoidance, but it felt like doing nothing. So I can totally see why they would do this from a fun perspective. But man, that is the biggest mechanical change I've seen in here. There's a lot of mechanical changes so far that are small and maybe interesting, but this one is the biggest one I've seen yet. And yes, it does, as chat points out, it will increase the power of other sources of disadvantage on enemy attacks, like blur or patient defense, for example. Readying in action is not implemented. Grappling is not implemented. What? Grappling's not implemented? That's a bummer. I was looking forward to maybe one of the grappling barb builds. Okay, grappling's not implemented. Consuming a potion is a bonus action. This is a very common homebrew rule in the tables that I play at. It's kind of nice. Don't hate it, don't love it. It's going to make bonus actions a little bit better. It's nice to be able to use your potions in a way that isn't totally prohibited to doing anything else. It's another one in the vein of the dodge one. It's not quite as powerful, but it's still interesting. If a creature throws a healing potion as an action, it will break and heal all targets in a small radius. This is very Larian-esque, isn't it? This is like I feel like this is a feature no one asked for and no one particularly wants. Maybe I'm speaking for myself alone here. But it is Larian's everything must ground effect. All right. Okay. You can AoE heal with potions. This applies to many but not all types of potions. I have I'm now making sense a little bit of one of the comments on one of my class review YouTube videos was talking about you can throw a haste pot as a barbarian, and I guess that's true. We can just haste the whole team, stand in an area. All right, well, we'll see. And the AI throws potions at each other? That's awesome. That's super funny. Okay, well, that's going to change things up in a fairly unpredictable manner to me. If there's enough AoEs, you're still going to be pretty incentivized to spread out. And you're going to naturally spread out anyways. But perhaps you open fights, for example, by starting mostly stealth and trying to get a high initiative roll or a surprise round and then just potioning your team. I wonder what potions do for concentration. Is it the thrower? Is it the person hit? Is there no concentration on like a haste from a potion? Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty interesting. There are options to throw creatures which are at least one size smaller than you. Not always accurately implemented. There's a minimum strength required based on the target's weight, and you need to win a contested strength. Keep adding strength. There's no word there. With a contested check using your athletics, which is a strength attribute. But I love this. There's a barbarian that can do this as a bonus action where you hurl creatures at people. I want to see it. Looks amazing. Hide is currently a bonus action for all player characters as of early access patch 9. Footage from Panel from Hell indicates that hide will switch back to an action unless a feature such as Rogue's Cunning Action gives a character the option to hide. Hide is another very strong ability. Having it as a bonus action for all player characters is, I think, very strong. So I don't mind seeing that reverted back to what it, I would say, should be, or certainly what it is in 5e right now. Bonus attack actions such as offhand weapon attacks do not require the character to first take the attack action. Okay. I didn't know that they did. I guess that is a change I wasn't aware was a change. I thought you could bonus attack a lot of times with a weapon without having, or bonus attack with a feature without having to use an attack. But some of them were like, some of them required. Some of them said things like, if you attacked with your weapon, then you can take an extra attack as a bonus action. But I guess they're just making these totally independent. Sure. Donning and doffing armor does not take time and can be done as an action even in combat. Kind of cool. I guess if this is like someone heat metals your plate armor, you can drop it. It's neat. Weapons are given unique weapon actions depending on the weapon type. These can be used once per short rest only if the wielder is proficient with the weapon. All right, we have to go look at the weapon actions. We'll come back to that. Unique weapon actions. Okay, that's gonna... I mean, it's going to give the weapons flavor, and I think one of the big failings of the 5e system is that the equipment is so goddamn boring. So, and mostly that casters are better than melee. So having some weapon actions seem kind of fun. We'll have a look. There's no magic item attunement system. That's quite a change. The attunement system limited your characters stacking every piece of magic gear they found to be like unbelievably strong compared to where they started. That being gone, well, this is going to depend on the availability of loot, how well they do their scaling, and how well they've thought through like the stacking you can do with that. It's kind of interesting. Is it bad or good? I don't know. It's attunement's clunky for sure, and attunement can feel real bad when you have a decked out character and you find some new piece of magic gear, and it's a pretty cool piece of magic gear, but it's a little bit worse than the gear you already have. That always feels real bad. So, getting an upgrade for that can be nice. A creature can have a melee weapon set and a ranged weapon set equipped that they can toggle between freely. As of early access patch 9, if you have a shield equipped in the equipped melee set, but have a ranged weapon set being actively wielded, you'll benefit from the AC boost the shield provides. We were talking about this when this was listed in the other stuff. That is super strong. Toggle between them freely is really nice too. Man, I can't wait to do some theory crafting once I internalize these rules. All right, we'll get there. We'll get there. Some equipment like gloves, boots, or helms may require armor proficiency to wear effectively. Gloves, boots, and helms. Huh. Does this mean then... I feel like previously, I don't even remember. Were there helm slots? I mean, I can't remember where the character model stuff is. I think there was. But like the armor stuff was basically, you got a plate chest, and that's the only kind it cares of its plate. So we might have like plate gloves, plate boots, that kind of stuff. Okay. They don't grant bonus to armor class unless you have a magical effect that specifically says they do, but they have many magical effects the character will only be able to don them effectively with the correct proficiency. So that's a just kind of nice passive buff, or maybe passive nerf, how you look at it. Passive buff to the character classes that can wear all types, like fighters in particular come to mind, paladins, and maybe a nerf to like wizards. You might not be able to put on the right hat, so that's kind of cool. Heavy armor does not have a strength requirement and therefore no movement speed penalty. Heavy armor doesn't have a strength requirement? What? Makes absolutely zero sense. Okay. I mean, maybe it's kind of inherently built in. Maybe heavy armor is going to be really heavy, for example, and that the strength attribute of your character kind of does define it. But if you find a way to cheat that via potions or spells or who knows, maybe it doesn't matter then. It's kind of interesting. You're unable to select starting equipment. You're given starting equipment based on your starting class. Okay. Crossbows currently have the loading property, but it does not restrict the usage of crossbows in any way. It's possible to continue to ignore loading at release. Loading is a requirement. Oh, it explains right well. I'll just read what it says. This allows a character to dual wield crossbows. It does not allow a character to wield a crossbow with a shield because the crossbow goes into the range set while the shield goes into the melee set. But as discussed above, the character gains AC bonus if shield equipped, even if you're in the range set. Appropriate weapons have the heavy property added to them, but this property does not apply disadvantage to attack rolls made by small creatures. Good. I've just been playing a couple of small creatures in Celesta right now, and it's just miserable, all the penalties that small creatures are getting hit with. Like, I'd like to play some of the other races, but every time I end up with small characters, they just can't do all the things I need them to do. So, good. I'm not sure what the heavy property is going to do without small creatures, but I guess we'll find out. Slings, darts, and whips are not in the game. Whips were an interesting weapon occasionally. The weight of various pieces of equipment have changed. For example, chainmail. Hold on, we want to look at this. We'll look at this after too. For example, chainmail weighs 36 pounds instead of 55 pounds. Remember, the dump strength as a dump stat is now, if we get 7 pounds is encumbered. So it's probably actually 6 pounds before encumbered. So if you have 8 strength and you can only carry 6 pounds per strength point, that's only 48 pounds of weight. And if chainmail counts as 36, I really need to know how this works with equipped versus inventory items. Do your equipped items count as your weight? Chat, do you guys know? Like how it is right now? All right, conditions. It does in early access right now. Equipped items count as your weight. Wait, those are two, I'm getting two contradictory answers in chat right now. Equip weight is the same as the weight in your backpack. That's not what I'm asking. Oh, I see. No, it is the same. It is the same. No, I see. Okay, so two people confirming then. So the armor you have on, which makes total sense, right? The armor you have on counts as part of the weight that you're able to carry. Man, strength just got a lot better, didn't it? They just buffed strength in like 12 different ways. Like weapon class, like weapons doing extra things is interesting. The extra gear, like the weight requirement, and encumbrance is pretty light, right? Anyways, that's we'll have to theory craft again. More theory crafting. I always love theory crafting. I'm actually gonna really enjoy the small changes to 5e. It's gonna shake up some of the shit that's super stale for me in this system, so I'm kind of excited about it. All right, conditions. Blinded. In addition to other effects, range attacks are limited to 15-foot range. Blinded creatures can also make opportunity attacks. Why? It's a weird change to blind, isn't it? Why does their range attack not go far? It doesn't make any sense. I'm blind and I let an arrow go and the arrow just stops at 15 foot. And also, why are blinded creatures allowed to make opportunity attacks? An opportunity attack is supposed to be me reacting to something the opponent has done. And if I can't see the fucking opponent, how do I react to it? That makes no sense to me. All right, encumbered. A character becomes encumbered when they carry an amount equal to 7 times their strength. This is why I said 6 a second ago and chat tried to correct me to 7. Because you are encumbered at 7 times their strength level. Being encumbered halves your jump distance. Does it do anything else? We don't know. Or at least I don't know yet. I mean, I could click the link, I guess. We'll have a look in a minute. Oh, maybe it says as a hover. Oh, you lose 10 foot of movement. All right. I don't think they mean disadvantage, chat. You already have disadvantage on all your attacks when blinded. So, anyway. Heavily encumbered. A character becomes heavily encumbered at 9 times their strength rather than 10 times. It also prohibits them from being able to climb or jump at all. And disadvantage on ability checks, attack. Okay, so as always, we want to avoid encumbrance. Maybe you're okay with medium encumbrance for a little bit, but probably not. So strength it's interesting. Strength's going to be important. Creatures which are frightened are unable to move at all, rather than being unable to move toward the source of their fear, unless the effect instead makes them fearful, which gives the frightened effect as well as making them flee. Slight nerf to frightened, maybe? Not sure. Cowering in place is an okay effect. It's going to be better in some scenarios, worse in others, right? Like melee characters, melee enemies cowering in place, you'd prefer they ran off so you get more time for them to have to run back, but whatever. It's just a small change one way or the other. It just changes the way those work a little bit. Prone. Being prone gives disadvantage on strength and dex saving throws. Attacks against a prone creature have advantage out to a range of 10 rather than 5. That's kind of arbitrary. Like, I get it to some degree. You know, if I'm 10 foot away from a guy on the ground, he's probably easier to hit than he would be if he's moving or something. But it does make your ranged abilities, your ability to capitalize on prone being better. And ranged attacks against a prone creature do not have disadvantage. Ranged attacks, wait. So that first bit is just for reach weapons, you're right, chat. And the second bit is ranged attacks against a prone creature do not have disadvantage. That's kind of weird, isn't it? I always thought that was kind of a nice... I liked prone being a little double-edged, right? Your character cannot do anything while prone. Starting the turn while prone will cause you to automatically use half your movement to stand up. Becoming prone during your turn automatically ends your turn. Huh. I wonder if things like trip attack are in the game. Well, ending their turn as like a reaction is kind of wild, right? Yeah, you just take their whole turn because their turn auto ends on prone. That's kind of cool. All right, turned. Turned creatures will not dodge since monks will likely be the only characters able to dodge. I don't follow that, but okay. Dude, maybe monk is better. Man, I wish I had seen these changes before recording my class review videos. I really wish I had. But oh well. They were always supposed to be my first look at the Baldur's Gate 3 characters, and my thinking is going to update as I get more information, and getting to do the information with you guys is really fun. So, okay. Turn creatures will not dodge. What does turn do again? Turn creature must spend its turns trying to move as far away from the creature it turned it as possible. Can't willingly move into space. It also can't take reactions. For its actions, can only use a dash action. Okay. Monk couldn't go lower. That's true. Can only go up from here. True. Wet. This new condition that prevents the character from burning. From like searing spite, okay. And grants resistance to fire damage, but also makes the creature vulnerable to lightning and cold. Okay. I see wet in a lot of other games. I'm thinking Age of Wonders 4 right now. All right, Miscellaneous. Great weapon fighting style rerolls any and all of an attack's advantage dice on a... Wait. Great weapon fighting style rerolls any and all of an attack's damage dice on 1 or 2, even if they're not part of the weapon's physical damage. Okay, small change. Great berries, aka good berries, that have been buffed due to being cast by a life domain cleric will only get the additional healing benefit. Okay, who cares? Very small changes here. If a character with an extra attack makes a melee or range attack first, they may follow it up with a thrown weapon attack. However, making a thrown weapon attack first causes the game to classify as a full throw action rather than part of an attack action consuming your entire action. That's clunky and awkward.